Hi, everybody. Today I'm taking another look at Axis and Allies Europe 1940 that came out in 2010. And it's kind of hard to believe it's been 15 years already. But since then, the 1940 setup has taken off in popularity on a scale that I could never have imagined. Of course, most people pair it up with the Pacific map to get the ultimate multiplayer global experience. But the European theater is also fun to play on its own, and it's arguably the hardest half of the equation to solve. At least it was for me, especially if you're trying to play as the Axis powers. Now, although I don't own a physical copy of the game at the moment, I have played it opposed live head to head on a laptop hot seat using AAA software several times while on the clock at work. So that's one reason why this game will always have a special place in my memory. Yep, those were the days. Anyway, I had to lose several games in a row, to be honest, before I finally figured out how to actually win with the bad guys. So now I'd like to share with you some beginner strategies with Italy, really good ones that you may use against your friends next time you play 1940 Europe online or on a physical game board. I'm going to let the computer handle Germany, everything else on the highest difficulty setting, while I play Italy. So why concentrate on Italy? Because I believe it plays a crucial role in the Axis war effort. Solid play with Italy translates into Axis victory. Now, the same can be said for Germany, of course, but even if the Germany player knows what they're doing, they won't last long unless Italy can realize its own national objectives. Officially or unofficially, it depends on whether or not you play with in game national objectives. Either way, they serve as important guidelines beyond the basics, such as always taking advantage of pairing bonuses, blitzing mechanized infantry with tanks, all that stuff. Anyway, as Italy, you want no Allied ships in the Mediterranean for as long as possible. I think you get 5 IPC bonus for that. There are other ones that kind of dovetail naturally with what Italy wants to do anyway. But the big main thing here in this game is you have to take and hold Egypt, period, the end, as early as possible. Egypt is everything in this game. It is the key to the Middle East, and it serves as the gateway to sub-Saharan Africa. Egypt unlocks access to a ton of IPCs. The Axis powers have to have them. Additionally, a strong presence in Africa by Italy will bog down and distract the Western allies from establishing a true second front in Western Europe. And you also have to take all the little islands, and I mean all of them, not just Malta, Cyprus, Crete, and everything. Like, otherwise, your transports might be subject to surprise long range bombing attacks, and then the enemy lands on one of these unexpected sites, and you can't do anything about it. Egypt in Europe 1940 is the Karelia of original ANA. It's the Caucasus of ANA revised. It's like India in the pared down ANA 1941. In other words, you can't not have it. It's also got to have a minor factory and a AA gun ASAP. It also needs reserves nearby poised to counterattack in case it falls to the Allies. I'd actually break Italy fighting over Egypt. It's that important. Now, this game can be criticized on historical grounds over this circumstance. Italy never really benefited from its African colonies to the extent that they contributed significant material value to the war effort. You know, they may have gotten access to luxury resources like spices, stuff like that, but no strategic resources like oil, not even from Libya, because that was discovered and developed much later. It's interesting, Italy and Africa was mainly a prestige thing. I think one main justification for Italian colonies in Africa was a possible answer to a chronic unemployment problem that Italy had. And I think Mussolini hoped he could send people there to be productive and build up infrastructure. Anyway, as an aside, I used to collect old banknotes, not so much anymore, but it's interesting that Italian paper currency from that period doesn't even call out its colonies with images and vignettes of African colonial resources or anything like that, like Germany did at the time. Obviously, Great Britain did at the time. But Italy, it just depicts all Italian power symbols, Romulus and Remus, eagles, the fascist cane axe thing, but no colonial resource callouts to speak of. So I think even Italy knew the true face value of its colonial exploits, which, were marginal. So this setup is wacky in a sense that you can turn Italy into a virtual superpower with conquests in Africa. But on the other hand, we know that this type of scenario has to be gameable. So anyway, I'll concentrate more on the play-by-play action here. But I will say that additionally, the Italian Navy plays an important role in this game. Yeah, I guess that's an understatement. I suppose you have to reinforce and defend both access points to the Med, Gibraltar, and Suez as a super priority. It's funny, these areas remind me of that one scene in the movie Jason and the Argonauts where he has to sail through the clashing rocks and arrows. Like, I mean, you have to make it as perilous as Jason's voyage for the Allies. You got to jam up the sea lanes behind it too. These choke points, even with chump blockers or cannon fodder to slow down the Allies in the event of a breakthrough. I mean, if both Western Allies concentrate on Italy, it's going to happen, but you have to withdraw in a measured, sort of controlled fashion. It can't be a rout. When the Allies finally decide to concentrate seriously, taking back Africa, if and when they decide to do that. Yeah, it's weird too because the things you buy with Italy in this game kind of are historically questionable as well. You can actually get good mileage out of aircraft carriers if you buy them at the right time. In real life, the Italians wanted battleships to counter French battleships. Carriers, of course, were not a priority. Not like Italy ever had the industrial capacity to build numbers of aircraft carriers in this game. But like I said, you can put one or two of them to good use here. I think in real life they had one carrier about 90% complete before they got knocked out of the war in 1944, 43. Okay, so we'll concentrate more on just play by play here, starting for round two. Yeah, you're going to see, human players or computer build 3 units probably always out of South Africa, especially if Egypt falls. You want that minor factory built in Egypt as soon as possible. Next turn after you actually capture it. You need you need to replace your ground forces with Italy as you lose them. But on the first turn, I did actually had a really lucky turn with Italy. I didn't really lose anything, so I just spent the extra money this turn on a submarine, which are actually effective units for Italy in this version of Axis and Allies as well. It's also, acceptable just to be annoying with Italy as much as possible in Africa. Take Kenya, run your tanks into open spaces, just anywhere you can achieve a breakthrough south of the Sahara Desert once you move out of or south of Egypt. You always have to keep your transports busy, ferrying stuff from southern Europe across the Med, the islands for sure, Cyprus and Crete. A lot of people just, overlook that necessity to take those potential landing spots, but you learn the hard way when you play someone that, bombs you from far away and takes out all your transports. And, that happens once, and then you learn never to neglect that. Malta goes down. for me, always, if I'm playing Italy. Second turn. Yet march across northern Italy as well, from Tunisia to Algeria, with as much as possible. You want to protect your transports with surface ships, just in case the Allies get desperate with bombers. Once Egypt is secure, and if it's not vulnerable to counterattack with transports, British transports in the Indian Ocean, you can start to cross the Suez Canal to Transjordan. Yeah, you can see the British do have 2 transports there in the Indian Ocean. But that stuff can be pretty much sealed off and contained once you secure the Suez. So that shouldn't be too much of a problem for the Italians. It's weird though, in this game the Germans, for whatever reason, they didn't want to take Bulgaria. They left that up to me. But I argue if you're playing Italy, you should not waste too many ground forces on the Eastern Front fighting Russia. That's not how Italy contributes to the war effort in this version of Axis and Allies, as far as I'm concerned. A token presence on the Eastern Front in the south, yes, but that's it. It should be Africa and the Middle East almost exclusively, simply because if you just look at the map, there's just far too many IPCs up for grabs, and I mean those are the farthest away from Allied factories, except for the rinky-dink one in Southern Africa, or South Africa, sorry, and you can overwhelm it if you play the Italians correctly. And if the Allies are indecisive with their strategy getting back on the continent or crossing the Atlantic Ocean, because if you're super aggressive with Italy in Africa, if we weakens Great Britain too much, and the Allies can't ignore it. They have to do something about it, right? That represents too much of a swing in economy. So it's a perfect way to keep the British and the German, or in the Americans off the Germans' back. And see, the computer's playing Germany fairly well here. They've got their army group north fairly strong in the old Baltics, and they're actually attacking Leningrad already. Let's see how they do here. Russians won that one. And actually pretty slow progress on the Eastern Front for the Axis here in round 3, but Italy isn't going to influence that that much. Like it's worth their while to spend those whatever precious resources they have, like prosecuting a war in Africa. Really, like their returns are way better. They can just, anything you put on the Eastern Front with Italy is just going to get thrown into the cauldron and burned up for little impact. I find it's, like I said before, Italy contributes to the war effort in this version of Axis and Allies by causing havoc in Africa and breaking into the Middle East. And only after several rounds, like maybe 8 or 9, can you start to threaten Russia from the south after you move through the Middle East. If you can. But yeah, it's so open here. Syria, Iraq, the Allies just simply do not have enough units on that area of the map. So it's, the one part of the board that can be overwhelmed easily by the Axis if you play correctly. And so far away from Allied factories, it's almost insane not to pursue this type of strategy with Italy. And just keep funneling infantry and tanks across the Mediterranean. Got to secure Malta. Keep trying until it's gone. It's just, I don't know, it's something that I refuse to ignore because, you will get aggressive allied players that will have bombers poised to just snipe those hanging transports. And if you lose all of them and you don't have an air force nearby, those bombers can land safely on those islands and do tremendous damage. So that's why you take all of them. You can't prevent submarines from sneaking past Gibraltar. I like that rule. But that's why you jam up the two sea lanes behind it to contain that type of allied strategy. Yeah, it's just back and forth seesaw battle in Africa for as long as it lasts. Like, obviously, once or if the British and Americans make a concerted effort to take back Africa, not much Italy can do to stop it, but you can fight, retreating battles that really slow things down. Actually, if you see the Allies massing for a huge campaign in Africa, it's kind of what you want to see because, I mean, that's prevents Germany from fighting on two true fronts, and that's all you can really hope for. But it's such a terrible dilemma for the Allies. You can't, you know, just let Italy do anything they want to do in this game. Otherwise, it'll just cost you way too many production points. So, what choice do the Allies have? They have to try to take Africa back, and it's easier to knock out Italy than it is Germany. So, they're coming. You just have to make it as annoying and difficult as possible to take these territories back for the Allies. So yeah, I keep my fighters usually within striking distance from Morocco or Gibraltar to launch a counterattack. Um, I mean, eventually those attacks into northern Africa by the Allies will become so overwhelming that the best you can hope to do is just kind of delay, and bend and bend and bend and bend without actually having your resistance completely shatter. You have to try fighting retreats, which, I mean, it's very possible to do in this. You just, every turn counts. Every turn the Allies are bogged down in Africa is almost a free roll for Germany on the Eastern Front. So, but you can see the Allies, they have like a sizable tin pot navy in the Indian Ocean with the ability to transport, but their production capacity isn't that big. So it's containable. There's the Germans attacking into Smolensk, eastern Poland, pushing the front east. Huge Russian army in the Ukraine, though. That's going to take a while for the Germans to manage. They did take Leningrad, and there's a pretty strong pocket of resistance stuck in the north there. But it does look like they're going to take Finland. Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard for the Germans in this game to prevent the Russians from having a very strong pocket of resistance in the north. We'll see if the computer can manage it. We're just starting the strategic bombing offensive against Germany now. If I'm playing the Allies, I'm very careful about doing that. That has to be timed correctly. If it's that strategy is premature, usually doesn't work. The priority is to get boots on the ground in France or Northern Africa. I wouldn't waste money on bombers early in the game. That's just me though. So I've taken the ground losses in Africa, and I have to. Once you have that factory in Egypt, your first purchases should always be. Well, I like 2 mechanized infantry per 1 tank. I prefer them even over infantry because I love the increased mobility. You do have the ability to actually maneuver in Africa, so it might be my favorite Italian piece, the mechanized infantry. You get great value for the 4 IPCs, I think, with them, and you compare them with the tank. So yeah, just keep on chipping away. Ethiopia, Kenya. Well, Kenya is actually pretty built up there. I mean, you could argue these are just nothing more than spoiling attacks to give the Germans more time in Russia. But take the IPCs as well, 1 or 2. You have to get across the canal into Transjordan and Iraq as quickly as possible. But the priority always is the security of Egypt. You keep funneling motorized infantry south from there. It's interesting. There's a German bomber in Egypt now. That's funny. I wonder where he's going with that. So annoying too. Like the Russian submarine, always like sneaks into the Mediterranean. So I like to deal with that. There looks like the British are prepared to make some sort of strike against Morocco or Gibraltar because they've got the 2 destroyers sitting out on the Atlantic Ocean there. We'll see what happens. Not sure how the Allied computer is going to play this out. But you can see Italy looks healthy. It's about to put an anti-aircraft gun in Egypt, funneling men and material across the Mediterranean uninterrupted. So everything's going well with Italy so far, as best that can be hoped. And like I said, you see that I'm not having a lot of units tied down in Eastern Europe. That's up to the Germans. So a couple tanks in the Congo. Yeah, I think this game could have benefited from terrain rules, even basic ones, I think. But oh well. Italy moving into Iraq, Transjordan, unopposed. That's not good for the Allies. They'll have to respond to that somehow. That's going to be on the British. So this situation right here in the Mediterranean theater on round 4 is the best Italy can hope for right here, what you see here. If you see this type of situation on round 4, you know the Axis are doing fairly well. I mean, this is the ideal situation. You see, I built the Eagle, the one Italian aircraft carrier earlier than what happened historically. But it actually works. You can put them to good use, I find, in this game if you're not under extreme pressure. Yeah, why not take the time to put a carrier? You have to start with 2 true fighters with Italy, so it's already potentially ready to go there with its aircraft complement. I just feel that it gives you more flexibility moving your transports around the Med. You don't have to worry about long range air raids on your transports if you have an aircraft carrier. So yeah, you see that huge pocket in Scandinavia now that the Germans have to reduce. Now the Americans are bombing Germany too. It's a combined Allied effort, strategic bombing offensive. So you need to, the progress has to on the Eastern Front, and Africa has to make up for that damage. The British are now striking back harder in Africa. Did a lot of damage to Italian forces, so you have to replace them out of Egypt. I think they took back the Congo there, and I took a lot of losses. So we have a lot of aircraft now flying into northern Russia as well. British building aircraft carriers in the Atlantic. That's weird that the Germans are flying a lot of aircraft into Egypt. I actually don't need their help down there. Wish they wouldn't do that. But you can see the first thing I built, you can totally tell that's going to Egypt. I don't think about the ground forces on the Eastern Front really at all with Italy. Unless they've come through the Middle East. Yeah, I've got the western door bolted shut to the Mediterranean, although I can see wow, 5 bombers ready to strike me there, based in French Guiana. So that's, you mean the Allies are coming, but I think I'll just, yeah, I'll put a sub out into the Atlantic Ocean there just to as a speed bump. That's it. It's worth it, I think. The Germans need time, and that's how the Italians give them it. So now I got a Italian aircraft carrier, which is funny, but protecting my transports. And more, all of this stuff is going to be headed to the Middle East, and Egypt. Like I said, I'll have like just a token presence in Romania, Italian troops. I would say no more than 5 Italian divisions on the Eastern Front. It's just you can't ignore the what's going on in Africa, in the Middle East. That has to be the main thrust of your military effort with the Italians. So, yeah, I use the Italian bomber in Africa even. You can take back Kenya, just spoiling attacks. You'd see more British troops funneling into West Africa. Nigeria is getting reinforced. That's good. I mean, think about it. Would you rather have British troops in British reinforcements in Nigeria or France, right? Like, rather have them down there, away from Europe. And I'm not sure what you guys do with the Indian Ocean fleet, because if you play Italy correctly, I mean, it's kind of stymied, because the main thrust of the British war effort should be taking back land territories in southern Africa. So that really leaves the British Far East fleet really with not much to do. I mean, you could swing it around the continent and just have it contribute in the Atlantic Ocean, or keep it active as long as possible in the Indian Ocean. I'm not sure. It's been a while since I played the Allies in this setup. The last 2 games I played, I was the Axis, so yeah, I don't even remember playing the Allies live head to head. So I'll have to probably make another video and really try and think about the best strategies to beat the Axis with the Allies. Yeah, so wow, the Russians have a lot of stuff in the Russia territory, but they're, if you notice, the computer's playing right? Like they're Bryansk, Smolensk, Vologda, all with one. That's how I play, with one unit. So you can pick and choose counterattacks. The person who made the AI is actually pretty. They know what they're doing here. Russia's playing pretty well on the Eastern Front here. They are being pushed backwards, but what do you expect? They're not getting any help from the Allies in Europe, which is inexcusable, really. Like, that's why Stalin was so pissed and didn't trust the Allies, right? He didn't get a true second front in Europe until 1944. He did not consider, Africa a true second front. So here we go. Now it's the decision has been made. The die has been cast by the Allies now. It's a massive effort in North Africa with the aim to knock Italy out of the war quick. But, here we are, round 6. It's taken 6 rounds for them to make that decision finally. And now it's my job to just delay the inevitable, right? For as long as possible. Give as much time for the Germans to take Russia while I slowly withdraw in order from Africa and try and protect the Med and the Italian peninsula. But yeah, the Americans just blasted through the back door here into the Med. There's nothing. I mean, I just have to try and stem the tide here. I'm not sure what they landed with. It's like a lot of tanks and men though in Morocco. It looks like. So now this is where you have to play defense for Italy, but it's expected, right? What can you do? It'd still be annoying. Take all these like shrinky-dink provinces in Africa back and forth. You can still actually push forward, take back Belgian Congo and Tanganyika. It looks like the British may have vacated the Indian Ocean now too, which is fine because that gives me the Middle East. But they're committed, I think, just to slam Italy from the west side here. Yeah, it's vacant. So now the Italians have a hard choice. I mean, do you? It's hard not to press an attack into the Caucasus, even though it's low percentage. I mean, it's critical on the Eastern Front, or it's getting that way, and you have to try and make as much headway drive deeper into the Middle East. But now you have the Americans to worry about. So Italy's fighting a two-front war now too. Yeah, that's big enough. 7 men, 7 artillery, and a tank in Morocco, which is. It doesn't look like they're going to be transporting across the Middle East. That's going to be driving straight across the land. So I'm going to try to do what I can to. Well, actually, yeah, I'm going to have to jam up those sea lanes because that stuff could attack Gibraltar next turn. So heading west with what is left, I guess. So I'll have to move that on my non-combat movement. But yeah, here comes the chump blocker naval units. So at this point of the game, it is hard to decide what is the priority, like addressing the American breakthrough in the West, or maintaining the integrity of Egypt, or driving further into the Middle East. It's hard. You have to try to kind of play it by ear. I would still say Egypt is pretty much. You always have to make sure that's not about to fall. That's the priority, even in a situation like this. And right now you can see it's fairly safe, so that's why I'm moving stuff to face the Americans. Just playing a shell game with the British. It's the southern half of the African continent, sorry. Attack into the Caucasus, just a token move there. That's the type of action you want to see with Italy in Russia. Just a handful of units, that's it. They have to concentrate in the Mediterranean. Otherwise, they'll just get rolled over by the Americans and British. So keep moving. Really interested to see what the Americans do with that force in Morocco, because right now I really don't have the forces to defeat it, but you do my best to slow it down. That's all I can do right now. building those small naval units to slow. Oh, that's weird. The Allies are now attacking neutrals. They're looking for IPCs. That's why. That's why they're doing that. Easy IPCs to make up for the stuff that they've lost. So the Germans are pressing forward. Not as fast as I'd like them to. They do have Smolensk. They're pressed right up against the Russian province, but they still do not have enough for... Oh, they're getting close. They're getting close to making a final push, Operation Typhoon, but... The problem is, though, that they're not being bothered in the West by the British and the Americans. See, that it's close. That's going to be a huge battle. Look at that. The bombers just spreading all across Europe, hitting Germany everywhere. They took Algeria. At least they caused some casualties. 2 divisions of Americans died in northern Africa. But now looks like they're going to land probably in the north there to help Russia. The Americans have a lot of troops on transports in the Atlantic now. Where they wind up going, I don't know. German factories are on fire all across Europe, thanks to American bombers. British bounced back in South Africa too. Look at that. They're fighting the Italians. So I'm going to have to... what am I going to do here? Need those... yeah, that's the mandatory build. I'll go back to the mandatory build for Italy. 1 tank. 2 mechanized infantry for Egypt. I'll keep moving, keep the Italian forces moving in southern Russia, but I'm not too concerned about them, honestly. Like, just try and do as much damage as I can with them. But oh yeah, I forgot to mention too, Iraq is a great place to build a factory as well, which you can see I did there. That if you could build a factory in Iraq and keep it, that gives you the Middle East. That gives you 4 more IPCs. Persia, basically, in Western India, and then you're free to attack Saudi Arabia. Since the Allies already declared war on the true neutrals, what difference does it make, right? Like, I think you can attack any of the neutrals. It's only in World at War rules, where if you attack a neutral, as the Allies, all of them turn into to Axis powers at once. I don't think it's the same type of rule in this game, I don't think. Anyway, I have enough to take Persia. I got a factory in Iraq. That just backs up Egypt, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to try and hold the Americans in... Well, I'm going to fight them in Tunisia and Libya, I guess. But it looks like they've moved their transports into the Atlantic to land a huge force in probably, it looks like Scandinavia. It doesn't look like they're actually pressing and attacking in northern Africa, unless they've decided to, okay, never mind. They landed south of the Sahara Desert, so they're gonna, that's where the rest of them went. So you can now say that the Italians face overwhelming odds in Africa, but fine. It's better than the Germans facing overwhelming odds in France. So I'm doing what I can, right? Like, this is how Italy contributes by playing the Matador to the Allied bull for as long as it lasts. I'm actually concerned. Like, I mean, they've got to be more desperate, and because I mean, I can't hope to hold Africa together with smoke and mirrors for long. Like, 4 or 5 turns tops. If both allies just throw everything in there. So we'll see what happens here. I've got the 2 sea zones blocked behind Gibraltar. This is all the best I can hope for. We'll be able to move into the Middle East next turn. Probably lose Tunisia, though. Nothing I can do about it. Wow, the Russians are strong in Sweden. That's weird. They're really creating a huge pocket of resistance, but it's like hopelessly cut off now. The Germans are bombing Great Britain now. Germans attack Switzerland? Why? That's so stupid. Novosibirsk is a good territory to take because the Russians, I think, get 2 free infantry as long as they have that territory. The Siberian reinforcements. So Russia still got that huge pocket in Scandinavia, causing problems up there for the Germans. There's a strong counterattack into Vologda. See, like, the Germans are still 2 turns away from taking out Russia, and that's, I mean, now that the Western Allies are concentrating on Italy, I mean, Germany has to be hopefully aware that I can't hold out much longer. This got smashed in Africa here. The British took Ireland. Wow, the Germans did 8 damage to the British from industrial bombing. Attacking into Ethiopia. They're getting close to Egypt, the British now. Yeah, I'm melting away. Italian forces are melting away, but I'm being hit with pretty much everything. The entire Western Allied war effort is being focused on me, which is good and bad. Probably good for the greater war effort as long as Germany can. I mean, I've got 2 good turns left in me, probably. And Germany's about 2 turns away from taking Russia, so it's going to be close. This game is close. Like, if the Axis take Russia in this game, it's not necessarily over if on the next turn USA or Great Britain can take out Italy, I think. But if the Allies cannot do that, if and when Russia falls, then I think it's pretty much over. But if both of them go down at the same time, I don't think it's over. But the Allies would have to be strong in Western Europe as well, and they're not. They're non-existent in this version of history, alternate history. There you go. Italy secures the Middle East. This is a very bad sign for the Allies. They are closing in on Italy. Like, I mean, Italy is disintegrating in Africa for sure. I'm going to be fighting tooth and nail to keep Egypt here in 1 or 2 turns. And when that falls, Italy is truly in trouble. So it looks to me like the Allies are at least a couple turns away from knocking Italy out of the war. And the same can be said, Russia may only have a couple turns left. So I'd say the Axis have an advantage. So at the moment. So spoiling attack into Algeria by the Italians. That's why you buy submarines with Italy. You can always snipe. It's a good base, the naval base in southern France. Yeah, at this point, any offensive operation by Italy in Africa is, you just considered it a spoiling attack, kind of delaying the inevitable. Knowing that Italian presence in Africa is tenuous each turn. There's just too much stuff going in there, like equipment. So do my best to delay the inevitable. Keep on sniping, hanging units in southern Russia. Same type of spoiling attack in southern Russia. Italy needs Russia to fall, though, in the next couple turns. If America presses that attack in northern Africa, there won't be anything between Algeria and Egypt that I have left with the Italians, except what I build right out of Egypt next turn. So yeah, I'm getting desperate with Italy. And it's like light equipment too. It's not, I don't know, I'm never going to be able to have tons of armor down there. But I am entrenched in the Middle East, which really helps. So Germany repairs 6 damage from industrial bombing. Russia still has 40 plus division. Look at that. Why is Germany wasting that? Germany attacks neutral Turkey and Spain, and they lost a bunch of tanks and valuable equipment, although they did take it. They must be playing the long game. That's not something that I think I would do. But you can see Russia is severely reduced now to two main areas of resistance, plus the huge pocket trapped in Scandinavia. Let's see what they can do to counterattack. Germans lost 3 infantry divisions, 1 armored division in counterattacks. Russia took back quite a bit of land. No, they're not strong enough. It's going to be at least 2 more turns. That was a good counterattack by Russia. Does Italy have 2 more turns? We'll see. Italian Navy getting bombed now. Don't have much south of the Sahara Desert anymore. More equipment just flooding across the Atlantic Ocean. I've got stuff coming up through Indian Ocean too now. Uh-oh. Did the Allies take back Spain? Okay, so they have a second front now, but it's in Spain. I guess it's a good distraction for the Germans to take Spain. Fight the Allies off in Spain and not in France, I guess, right? But Italy is its time in Africa is almost up. I'm fighting for the survival of Egypt. Fortress Egypt. So I admit now Egypt's in trouble. Italy, and therefore Italy. But so is Russia. I got a lot of stuff in the Middle East. We're trying to give, at this point, I'm going to have to commit it to the Russian front. If I do this, I hope it will encourage the Germans to just go for broke in the next couple turns, because if they don't, their minor ally won't survive. So I'll follow Germany's lead here by taking Saudi Arabia. And then all this stuff is going to head back into Africa via Transjordan. Wow. The Allies have a lot of equipment now in Africa. Oh, I can snipe another transport. I'm getting good value with that one Italian submarine. Spoiling attack into Morocco, why not? Desperate times for Italy, and that'll take a full turn for the Allies to take back, so why not? Now I wonder, like, if all like that gigantic, massive stack of Allied units on transports in the Atlantic is going to get dumped into Spain, or maybe Sweden. I don't know where that's going to land. We'll see soon enough. But Egypt is now seriously threatened. The Allies have enough to take Egypt. However, it's split between British and American units, so it can't be coordinated. And that's probably the only thing that's saving Egypt at this point. I did take back Morocco. Whatever. The big battle, the important battle is going to be in Egypt. But the factory in Iraq is good too, because I mean, there's still, it leaves some hope for a counterattack in case the Allies do take it on the first attack here. But I'm actually pretty worried about this because the whole Med is wide open after Egypt falls from the eastern corridor here. And it's going to take another turn for the Germans to mobilize enough forces for a final push into Moscow, because all that stuff in Archangel takes one turn to get there. And did they even move it up? Let's see. Thirty units, 30 infantry. Round 10, they're ready. The Germans are having a big, I don't know, 40, yeah. They're going to have to go for it next turn. It looks like they have 42 infantry division, 30 tanks. Uh-oh, what happened there? That looked bad. I missed it. I think Italy lost everything south of Egypt there in the battle. Yeah. So, yeah, now the British are taking back Saudi Arabia. That's one factory build from Iraq destroyed. And they took back India. And they will take Egypt next turn. So the Germans have to take Russia this turn. They have to do it. Otherwise I'm going to die here with Italy. Italy will be crushed soon. Which is unacceptable if Russia is not out of the game. So I could take back Saudi Arabia. I'm lucky that the Americans and British cannot coordinate that attack from Anglo-Egypt Sudan. But they may have tanks and stuff behind. They can blitz through. have to move everything from Russia south. They sniped another Allied transport there. This time it was actually loaded. That's something that you can't allow to happen if you're the Allies. That's just ridiculous. That should never happen in this game. Except maybe like at the very beginning when the Germans have the initiative with their subs. But let's see here. Took back Saudi Arabia. That's a lot of stuff in the Atlantic Ocean. I'm not sure where that's headed. Let's see. More Navy just to block the Allies from entering the Mediterranean in force. Not sure what's going to happen here. I don't know what the Allies are planning. That Russian pocket is worth 6, 7, 8, 9 IPCs. So it's well worth the Russians' effort to do that. That's a huge point swing. No wonder you do that with the Allies. And it looks like the Germans are actually going to go for Russia here. They pretty much have to. Holy crap, look at that. They just, they lost 30, 45 men. Took it though. So there you go. That's what efficient play with the Axis looks like. It was close though. I was worried with the Italians for a little bit though. It looked like Egypt was being threatened. If the Allies would have taken Egypt before the Germans took Russia, it's a big problem. But you can see the Allies weren't organized in that way. You know, look at all this farting around in South America and, you know, finally building up a huge invasion force in Great Britain, but only after Russia is taken down. Like that's not good enough. But it's hard too. What if Italy does what I did with it in Africa? You can't well ignore it, right, with the Allies. So it creates sort of confusion and a distraction from getting into France. I mean, what do you do? It's tough. You can really make that a horrible, tough dilemma for the Allies. You just can't be indecisive. So we're going to skip ahead. If this happens in a game, you can argue that it's only a matter of time. Because I found that you can't, this is actually pretty funny. So if you have this situation where Russia's gone and the Allies are unable to take Italy on the very next turn, and it's clear that, you know, that you can actually make a stand, like the German stuff in Russia can be diverted south to help the Italians in the Mediterranean theater, then what you do is with Italy, just buy all submarines. You can be Mr. Sub. And you might say, like, well, okay, well, why would you do that? That seems silly. No, because the answer to subs is more expensive than subs. Okay, so I think at this point, Italy would have like an economy of like, I don't know, something like 60 or something like that. Then if I'm buying like 9 subs a turn, then it will take the entire, economic capacity of Great Britain, basically, or America, to come up with like destroyers and aircraft to counter it. And then there's really nothing left to defend like whatever remains in Africa or the Middle East. And then the balance just starts tipping like further and further in favor of the Axis. It's really a non-recoverable situation, I would argue. I think it, like I said before, it is possible for the Allies to stem the tide if they are in a position to knock out Italy, like 1 or 2 turns tops after Russia falls. But if they can't do that, then yeah, it's not going to be a recoverable situation for the Allies, in my opinion, because yeah, the next thing that happens is like that steady stream of equipment and men across the Atlantic Ocean is going to be interfered with, and then, I mean, it's hopeless. Eventually, all of Africa will fall into Italian and German hands. All of the Middle East, and it'll be a wrap. So, yeah, I argue that you have to know how to play Italy to have success with the Axis in this version of ANA. When I played opposed head to head, it was against a guy that he was like way younger than me, right? And I actually introduced him to Axis and Allies and AAA, and we'd been playing, and we sort of took a break, and then after a while, I said like, "Have you been playing ANA like by yourself, just sort of exploring all the different options and like alternate maps and stuff they have on AAA?" And he's like, "Yeah," and then said that he's been experimenting with this, and it was actually before I think it was maybe the first time I'd ever tried 1942nd edition, was playing him on AAA, like hot seat on a laptop, and I played as the Axis, and I got smashed by like someone with way less experience than me in it a couple times, and it took me quite a while to figure out, okay, what is going on here, because the you know typical bum rush of Russia by Germany, with tanks, and just you cannot overwhelm Russia in this game without careful Italian play in the Mediterranean theater, which it took me a while to master that aspect of this. But it really seems to be the key, in my opinion, creating that critical diversion south of Europe to distract the Allies from what they really have to be doing, and that's getting a super strong foothold in France, Normandy territory, whatever it is. And it really doesn't matter. Like, you see all this, this huge navy with all this stuff in it, but you can see now it's all subs, and it doesn't seem like a lot, when you first start buying 5, but 3 turns later, when you sail into the Atlantic Ocean with 15 or 19 submarines, that's when the tide turns. So we just skipped ahead here, and you can see it's by 16 turns, like all of the Middle East and Africa is lost, And I just showed you here at some point a huge naval confrontation will take place between the Axis and Allies, and this did happen like off the coast of Morocco. And you can see the Americans wipe me out, but look at what it cost them. Like all of their surface fleet, which protects their submarines. And that's kind of what I'm looking for, because my next builds will be all submarines, and then they'll have to waste money to not even match that expenditure. It has to exceed that expenditure because the destroyers and aircraft are more expensive than subs. Subs are great value in this for Italy if the war is going bad for the Allies. Look what's left. That's what's left. I'll take that trade as the Axis if this is the game state right now. Look at those juicy unprotected transports off the east coast of United States now. How long does it actually take to capture Great Britain from turn 16 at this point? You'd be surprised it actually doesn't take the Axis that long. You can see the Germans have already built 19 transports. More than that, they have what, 26? Italians' economy is at like close to 60. I think it was like 58. See 9 subs every single turn. That's more than enough to take up the entire British economy, or the Americans as well. So take your pick. So what can the Allies do to, to start to take some of these territories back? Like nothing, really. They lose everything eventually. Ten subs versus 1 cruiser. And I built 9 more behind it, so I'll have 19 submarines with Italy ready to be unleashed in the Atlantic Ocean while Germany does its thing. So from turn 16 at this point, how long does it take to get the UK? We'll skip ahead here shortly. I just want to see what the Germans do here. They'll probably buy, who knows? I bet you they buy like aircraft carriers or something. Or no, they already, look at that. They already have enough stuff to take out Great Britain. I underestimated how far like they can reach with their transports there, because they do have naval bases. So yeah, there you go. 17, Great Britain. Around 17, Great Britain is gone, and now it's over. Like game's over. America doesn't have generate enough IPCs to make a comeback from this situation. So I just rolled it ahead to see what happens, like from 17 to skipped ahead 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 turns, and it looks like the Axis, are poised to attack right into North and South America. I don't think you'd ever really play a live opposed like game to this point on a physical game board, because most people would be experienced enough to know that this is the outcome. But just so you can see what it looks like, that's why I chose to run it this long. So you have a couple turns as the Allies after the Axis take all of Europe and Africa before Great Britain is conquered, and then maybe 5 more turns after that before the United States is destroyed and overwhelmed. but like a key component of allowing that to happen is the Italian submarine strategy. I love subs in this game. It's so much better than they were in the original Axis. Like, I like it. See what the Americans do. Well, the Americans have nothing. So, yeah, it's over. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this playthrough of Axis and Allies Europe 1940. We'll return at some point with Allied strategy. But anyway, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more content coming soon.